Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Nick Talks. This episode's amazing guest is a gentleman I've been following now for probably about a month on YouTube. It's Foxy from the Silver Fox Hot Takes. So, first of all, welcome to the show.
Well, hi to your guests, hi to your viewers, hi to you. And if any of my viewers are watching, hi to them as well.
I wanted to chat to you about one particular topic because in your bio on YouTube, it says you talk a lot about Scottish politics. And as an Englishman living in England, I know where Scotland is. I've been many times. I used to work in Scotland, but I've never really understood Scottish politics to a great length. To me, Scottish politics is the SNP, who I dislike. I find the SNP to be anti-English. And over the last 10 years, they've turned into a far left, woke, crazy party. And a few years ago, I wrote an article about them on my Substack about how the SNP were linked to Nazi Germany during the Second World War, which no one seems to know about. But all that is public record. This isn't a conspiracy website theory. All the documents have been released by MI5 and everything. So let's jump into this. In a nutshell, what is Scottish politics? What's the best way of describing what's going on in Scotland?
Well, I've always said that Scottish politics is it's like children playing politics. It's You've got some very good politicians there. You've got some fantastic sort of constituent MSPs and MPs. They're not all awful. The trouble is the tools they've been given are particularly bad. But there seems to be so many of them that are either stupid and inept or totally corrupt. Now you can forgive stupidity, but corruption is deliberate, and you can't forgive that. But then you have the what I would call the very dangerous ones. Now the dangerous ones are things like Nicola Sturgeon. When she took over from Alex Salmond, God rest him, um, he was a fairly moderate leader of a party. She took it to the extreme where there was no more differences. You couldn't disagree with someone. You couldn't be on the other side of an argument. She took it that just because they disagreed with you, you had to hate them. And I think that was always dangerous. And so she pushed really policies of hate. And I think that has absolutely destroyed the SNP. But you do have some great SNP politicians. And I always say Fergus Ewing is a king amongst men as far as any politician in Scotland. He's generally one of the few that I would say would be respected and liked, regardless of whatever party you follow. And again, Jackie Baillie for Labour, another one who is highly respected, works hard, is genuinely a good MP or MSP, sorry. And there are a few of them, but there's an awful lot that are absolutely out of their depth. And that's the problem. They're given jobs for which they have no life skills, no knowledge. You say you've worked, you've done things. These people have never held a job. You get someone like Neil Gray who came from energy, which is a small department, it's a paper pushing department, then he's given health. Now the rumor is he doesn't even do it. He sits in his office, locks the door, and then sits doing nothing all day. He cannot talk to anyone on the phone, doesn't do meetings, he doesn't go out and about. And sadly for Scotland, that's a lot of them in the SNP. But it isn't just them, it's all the parties. There's an awful lot of them that are just out of their depth. And I would say it's a comedy of errors,
Now, let me just ask you this. Everything you've said then, we also think about all the English politicians, all the Welsh politicians. So are you saying that Scotland is uniquely worse in their class of politicians, or is it fair to say this is the quality of most of our politicians in the UK presently?
Well, bit of both. I would say that there are very few, and especially after the last general election, there are very few good politicians left. There's very few politicians that you've even heard of now. A lot of the new intake, you've never heard of them. A lot of the old school ones have gone. But Scotland, I do feel, is uniquely bad. And I think it's almost because it's tribal. It's no longer party against party. It's tribal politics up there. And it really is. And, if you're beyond just the parties, you've also got unionist and independent. You've also got the sectarianism between Catholic and Protestant, which a lot of people you associate with Northern Ireland. People don't realise how strong that is in Scotland as well. So it's incredibly tribal, and it does create difficulties when you're trying to reach something in the middle. For you can actually have a policy that both parties agree is a good policy, but they won't vote for it because they suggested it. And it's good policies are laid waste because of the tribalistic nature of the politics. It's horrendous, but funny. Funny for us not living in Scotland. No.
Yeah, it wasn't. I didn't realize this until I worked in Scotland. I used to, when I wasn't working, I'd go out for some drinks in Edinburgh. And I was surprised you'd walk into, a very nice bar and there'd be signs before you walked about no football colours, no football shirts. And I had to ask somebody inside what was that about. And when they're explaining it, I'm going, I can't believe this. And I had a jacket on that had a Union Jack little emblem. And I got told when I was walking somewhere, Nick, take your jacket off and turn it inside out because there's a good chance if we bump into the wrong people walking down the street during the day, we could get assaulted here for that Union Jack on your jacket. And I didn't know any of that until in my late 20s, I was working there. Now, I said at the very beginning that I've always felt the SNP were anti-English. Is that fair of me? Are they anti-English?
Some of them. Officially, the party aren't, but they are very much anti-British establishment. But of course, down on the street level, this percolates down, and this is what I'm talking about: the politics of hate. This has percolated down to the lower order members of the party that do turn what would be an anti-establishment sort of rhetoric into a rhetoric of hate. And yeah, you will get a punch in the face if they feel like doing it. And that has been exacerbated and got far worse ever since Sturgeon came to power in the SNP. It really has got worse over the last 15 years or so.
Now, do you think Sturgeon was like this and this was her plan, or do you think she became leader? She was Salmon's, he trained her. She was his number two. She took over. She was rated the best politician in the UK for years and years and years. And then it all went wrong at the end. Was she a victim of this woke nonsense, and that brought her down? Was it the fact that she couldn't control her party and all this happened, and she couldn't control it all, or did she buy into all this?
Oh no, she controlled her party. She ruled with an iron fist. You can look back on things and you'll see they'll be in the parliament now, and one of the others will over there will say something, and then she'll just turn her head and the glare in her eyes. She went, so I've got an Irish mother, a Northern Irish mother, and sometimes when I was a child, and I would do something, and my mother would look across a room like and glare, and I was like, ooh, because that was nippy. She would just and the glare in her eye, and people would stop. She had power. I mean, much as I dislike her, she had the power. I mean, in terms of being a politician, she was a good politician. She had authority, she had power, but I think she took it in the wrong direction. Thing is, since none of them have had the power, none have had authority. Humphrey Youssef never had authority, and John Swinney's just keeping the chair warm. She was the one that had the power and the authority. But when you're just talking about did she become that? No, I think ever since she was very young, she was anti. I always have the impression that she dated an Englishman and was very much let down, and it's sort of ground. That's how like it formed at a young age because she was always anti-English. Yeah, and very, very much a woman of independence minded. But awful as she is, though, I've got to give her that. She was a truly excellent politician.
Yeah. I mean, yes, everybody in England were always looking her way, going, that's what you call a leader, that's what you call a great politician. Now, are the SNP finished? Is this a blip in SNP's history? Will they be coming back and going from strength to strength, or has this damaged the brand? What's going on with the SNP now?
I think they're on a slow decline. I think First of all, their fortunes are falling badly because they're losing numbers. They're losing members. Every by-election so far, I think they've only won one by-election out of about 17. And there was 5 by-elections on Friday, or it was on Thursday, but the results were Friday. They lost all 5 then. Excuse me. There's more to come. They're not expected to win. In some by-elections, they're not even putting a candidate up because they haven't got the cash. They know they're going to lose the £500 deposit. They're not even bothering. So they're in deep financial trouble. They're in deep political trouble. And the only thing that's giving them hope is that Labour have proved to be so catastrophically bad that they look good in comparison. And so people who would have gone, oh, bloody hell, SNP, I'm going to vote Labour, are going, oh, shit, no, I'm not going to vote Labour. I'm just going to stick with the SNP, But that's the only thing that they've got that's saving them. But I tell you, come the next Holyrood election in May 26, they will be a very powerful party within Holyrood, possibly even still the biggest party. But they won't be the party of government. It will be Labour, Lib Dem, or Labour and even Labour and Tory. They will go in with something because they all know the one thing they've got to do is form a government that does not involve the SNP. And independence is dead anyway. It's constantly in second place in every poll,
Well, that was going to be my final question about the independence. So we'll come to that. My next question then, following from what you just said, was how Reform UK doing in Scotland?
Surprisingly well, considering that it's almost as though they're not even trying. They've came second in a lot of those by-elections. They've actually got a Scottish councillor now. So it is rising, even though they're not actually pushing particularly hard in Scotland. Their numbers are rising. I think come 26, again, there will be a massive push by Reform into there to try and get seats in Scotland. They'll probably get it on the list system rather than direct constituency vote. But I think they'll certainly take votes. They'll certainly take seats in Scotland, plus the council seats, and plus, of course, when you've got England, Wales, you've got the by-elections, not by-elections, the council elections next year. I think a good showing there from Reform will give them that momentum to then carry on the following year, boom, and up into Scotland. And I think they'll take votes from everyone, apart from the SNP. I don't think SNP will vote for Reform, but I think all the other parties may well lose votes, as we're seeing in England, because Reform are taking votes from both Labour and Tory. So
that's very interesting.
I think the SNP won't lose votes to Reform, though.
Right, I wasn't sure if Reform would do well because they're connected to the Brexit party and connected to taking us out of Europe. I wasn't sure how that would go down there. My last question, really, the last discussion point, really, is around independence. What's happened to that? Do you know any stats on the latest figures of who supports it? Is it dead? Is it coming back? Have they had their chance for independence? What's going on there?
Well, 2014, they had the referendum and the people spoke and the people said, no union, that's it, no independence. And every poll since, every reputable poll since, has confirmed that. It's always union over independence. Now, there will be the odd one or two that pops up. Oh, look, there's 51% want independence. But then when you look, and it was, oh, this poll was conducted on behalf of the national newspaper, which is pro-independence. So a dodgy one at best, a bit shady there. But it's more, buns for elephants rather than anything serious. But yeah, every single reputable survey has said that independence is off the table. And of course, very literally yesterday, the Lib Dem said that they'll push the Scottish budget through this year in December, on the condition that within the budget, not one penny is spent on independence. What do? I don't think they'll take it. I don't think John Swinney has the balls to say, okay, we won't put a single penny into independence just to get the budget through. Trouble is, if the budget fails, may well leave to an early election, and that would cause problems. No party's geared up for it yet, of course, because they're all preparing for 2026.
Yeah. So, so independence, the numbers are not looking good. But what are those numbers? Because from my memory, at the referendum 2004, a decade ago. Wow, don't seem a decade ago.
Yeah, I know.
It was, what wasn't it, 45 to 55?
Something like that, yeah. And it's been consistently that. It's wobbled. It's gone down 52, 48, then 53, 47. But it's always that difference. And it's always, without fail, on the side of the union.
Right. So they're still pulling roughly 45%. Those people haven't changed their minds. What they're doing is prioritizing other things over independence. Hence why they're not voting for the SNP, because they want a stronger economy. They want more money in their pocket. They don't want men going to women's jails. They're voting for those things as opposed to just on independence.
Well, yeah, I mean, just as an aside, because of what you've just said there, one of the big problems, of course, is income tax. For those who don't know, income tax in Scotland is, first of all, it's higher generally, but also there's more bands. And so as you earn more, you pay more, but at an earlier stage, fiscal drag. And this is absolutely slaughtering the economy because let's say you wanted to invest. Why would you invest in Scotland and pay more tax as opposed to going south of the border and paying less tax? If you're someone who's got a particular transferable skill, why would you stay in Scotland and pay more tax, do the same job in England, take more money home? And that's what they're finding. They can't attract staff, they can't retain staff, and inward investment is failing. And it's got so bad that Shona Robertson, Scotland's finance minister, is all more or less begging Rachel Reeves to put taxes up in England to match Scotland's high taxes. But I know. And Shona is probably going to have to increase income tax in Scotland again in her budget. They've never heard of the Laffer curve, and they're going to die on that hill with it. Can't keep taxing people; they run out of money.
And that's what's happening to California. What happens is you raise your taxes because you need more money because people are leaving. You raise the taxes, that makes more people leave. So next year you've got to raise your taxes again because more people have left. You raise your taxes, more people leave, and it gets to a crunch point.
You heard about the UHaul the UHaul crisis in California?
If you mean that all the U-Hauls, which are like caravans that people tow, there's none left in California. They're all in Texas.
California, they're all in Texas.
Yeah. Because what normally happens is, so yeah, you'll hire a U-Haul, it gets taken somewhere, but then the next person who then wants to go to California will hire that U-Haul and take it back. But no one's moving to California.
Right. They've got 8 fields with acres worth of these U-Hauls, and nobody's going back to California.
Well, let's hope that does happen to Scotland, because even though we're separate countries, I look at the Scots as my cousins. When Scotland play any team apart from England's, I want Scotland to win. I want Scotland to do well in the Worlds. I know that's not always returned by some Scottish people, but I see the Scots as my cousins. I want them to do well.
They are literally, in my case, like I say, married to a Scot. So, but yeah, it's culturally we're similar. We're 95% the same culturally. We've got very close and long-lasting, compact nations. We're all very similar. We're all different, but we're all similar. And our similarities are greater than our differences. But it's just a shame that you get these idiots that seem to think that we're the enemy. We're not. We're just people. I'm trying to make my way in the world. Politicians are the enemy.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Especially over the last couple of months, we're looking at our latest politicians, our latest government here going, Jesus, I knew they would be bad. I didn't think they would be this bad this quick.
No, it's been a collapse, isn't it?
Hasn't it?
Honestly, it's a black hole sucking everything in.
No, I can't see how it lasts. I just can't see how it lasts.
I can't see it lasting. No.
So there'll be some things will happen.
YouTubers, it's fantastic though, isn't it? There's a story every day.
Yeah, any video I do on YouTube, if I'm in a title, if I talk about Starmer resigning or being thrown out, it's an instant hit. because people are going, I hope this is true. I'm clicking on it. I want it to be true. I want it to be true. And it's
it's the big three at the moment: Starmer, Rachel Reeves, and Ed Miliband.
yeah.
Yeah, put them in the title. Whoosh.
Foxy, thank you much for coming on my channel. Hopefully we can do this again.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your insight. It's helped me understand Scotland a little bit better. And I'll put anybody watching, go into the description of this video. The first line will be Foxy's YouTube channel. Click on it, subscribe. You won't be disappointed. He talks about all sorts of things, all political, England's, UK, and Scotland. Cheers, Foxy, and I'll speak to you again soon.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks very much. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day. Bye.